The Young and the Restless spoilers Friday's full episodes February 21st, 2025. Audra's heart pounded with a mix of indignation and sorrow as she faced Nate's cold, accusing stare. The tension between them had reached a breaking point ever since the incident with Hold'em. In the quiet aftermath of whispers and rumors, Nate's once trusting gaze had been replaced by suspicion. "You were seen with Hold'em," Nate accused, his tone laced with bitterness. "There's no way that was a mere coincidence, you're hiding something." Audra's eyes flashed with hurt as she tried to explain. "Nate, it was nothing more than a chance encounter," she insisted, her voice trembling with a blend of frustration and desperation. "We met, exchanged a few words, and that's all there was to it. There's no secret affair, no hidden agenda, I'm telling you the truth." But Nate, shaped by years of doubt and a tendency to see betrayal lurking in every shadow, refused to accept her explanation. In his mind, every casual meeting, every seemingly innocent conversation, was proof of secrets waiting to be exposed. Unable to bear the endless cycle of mistrust, Audra's patience finally snapped. With a fury that surprised even herself, she lashed out, her words slicing through the charged silence. "You're such an idiot, Nate. Always jumping to conclusions without any evidence," she spat, her anger mingling with sorrow. "I'm done trying to convince you. One day, mark my words, you'll get what's coming to you, and I swear you'll regret these baseless accusations." In that heated moment, Audra's harsh words carried a grim promise, a warning that the bitterness of unbridled suspicion could one day lead to dire consequences. Elsewhere, in a more calculated and strategic realm of conflict, Jack found himself grappling with yet another piece of ominous news. Nikki had delivered a stark warning. Victor's power was stronger than ever, and the stakes of their ongoing conflict were higher than anyone had dared to imagine. "Jack, if you don't get out while you still can, we're all doomed," Nikki had cautioned, her voice heavy with foreboding. "Victor's hold over everything is unyielding. There's no winning against him if we try to stand and fight." But Jack, whose resolve had been forged in countless confrontations with the formidable Victor, was undeterred. He had faced Victor time and again, learned to read his tactics, and knew the man's weaknesses almost as well as his strengths. "I'm not afraid, Nikki," Jack replied with a calm defiance. "I've been down this road before. I know what I'm up against, and I'm prepared to take my chances. Victor may be powerful, but he isn't invincible." For Jack, the battle was not merely one of strength, it was a test of will and wisdom. His experiences had taught him that sometimes, the most decisive weapon was not brute force but an unyielding determination to stand for what was right. In a quieter, more introspective corner of the unfolding drama, Kyle found himself in a reflective conversation with his father. Tired of the endless, destructive cycles of power struggles and bloodshed, Kyle's voice carried the soft, but resolute tone of someone ready for change. "Father, I can't do this anymore," Kyle admitted, his eyes filled with a weary resolve. "All this fighting, it's meaningless. I want to reconcile with Victor. I want to build something real, something peaceful. I know my limits, and I refuse to be dragged into another pointless war that will only leave us all broken." His words hung in the air, a sincere plea for a truce that might finally allow him to reclaim his life from the endless strife that had dominated his existence. Kyle's desire for reconciliation was not born out of naivety, it was the hard-won conclusion of a man who had seen enough chaos to last several lifetimes. He understood that some battles, no matter how fiercely fought, could only lead to further destruction. "I'm willing to make sacrifices," he continued softly, "if it means that one day we can all live in peace. Even if it means giving up on old grudges and forging a new path together." His plea, a mix of hope and resignation, contrasted sharply with the bitterness that now consumed Nate and the unyielding defiance that characterized Jack's stance. In the midst of these conflicting forces, betrayal and anger, determination and reconciliation, the intricate web of family and alliances grew ever more complex. Audra's outburst, fueled by frustration and the sting of constant doubt, highlighted the destructive nature of mistrust. Nate's suspicions, though rooted in past wounds, threatened to drive a permanent wedge between them, leaving scars that might never fully heal. Meanwhile, Jack's steadfast commitment to challenging Victor, despite dire warnings, underscored a determination to fight for a future free from tyranny. And in stark contrast, Kyle's quiet yearning for peace offered a glimpse of hope, a possibility that not all battles had to end in bloodshed and ruin. As the days turned into restless nights, each character found themselves at a critical juncture. Nate, reeling from the confrontation with Audra, was forced to confront the possibility that his unyielding suspicion might be isolating him from the very people who cared for him. His heart was a battleground of love and distrust, a place where every memory of betrayal was countered by fleeting moments of tenderness that once defined his relationship with Audra. Could he learn to trust again, or was he destined to remain trapped in a cycle of paranoia and regret? Audra, though hurt and exasperated, began to wonder if her own fierce independence might be pushing Nate further away. Her passionate defense of her innocence was a double-edged sword. While it freed her from the constraints of constant suspicion, it also deepened the rift between them. "I wish you could see that not everything is a conspiracy," she thought bitterly, yet her inner strength urged her to stand by her truth, even if it meant facing the loneliness of misunderstanding. Jack, on the other hand, continued to chart his own course with unwavering resolve. Despite Nikki's dire warnings about Victor's seemingly insurmountable power, Jack's experiences had taught him that every tyrant has a breaking point. He was determined to push forward, not out of hubris, but out of a deep-seated belief in the possibility of justice and honor prevailing over unchecked ambition. Each confrontation with Victor had honed his instincts, sharpening his resolve and deepening his understanding of the true nature of power. "I've faced him before," Jack reassured himself, his voice steady in the face of impending challenges. "I know his moves, and I know how to counter them." Nate's struggle to trust, Audra's fierce insistence on her own integrity, Jack's resolute defiance against tyranny, and Kyle's earnest hope for a better future all converged to form a complex narrative where every decision carried the weight of destiny. As twilight faded into the deep hues of night, the quiet murmur of distant conversations and the solemn rustling of leaves outside served as a reminder that every storm eventually gives way to calm. Yet, the calm that followed was not the absence of conflict but the delicate balance between opposing forces, a balance that, if maintained, might one day lead to healing and unity. In that uncertain limbo, the characters, each with their own scars and dreams, continued their journey, knowing that the road ahead was as treacherous as it was hopeful. For Nate, the challenge remained: could he let go of his relentless suspicion and embrace a future where love could flourish without the constant threat of betrayal? For Audra, the battle was to assert her truth without driving away those who might one day understand her. Jack and Kyle, though on seemingly divergent paths, both carried the shared burden of a legacy marred by conflict, a legacy that demanded not only confrontation but also the courage to seek a different future. In the end, their intertwined fates would be decided not by grand gestures or dramatic showdowns, but by the quiet, persistent efforts to bridge the gaps between mistrust and understanding. And as the first light of dawn began to break, it was clear that even in a world torn apart by suspicion and strife, there remained a fragile hope that through honesty, forgiveness, and the willingness to change, a new day could indeed be born. Simmering beneath the surface. The news had hit her like a bolt of lightning. She was on the verge of being fired, and the blame, in her eyes, rested squarely on Sally's shoulders. Rumors had spread that Sally's influence over Billy had shifted his once unwavering commitment, steering him away from the very values Phyllis held dear. To Phyllis, it seemed that every misfortune that had befallen her career was intricately woven with Sally's presence, a force that had upended the established order and, in the process, left Phyllis with nothing but bitterness. Determined to confront the root of the issue, Phyllis made her way to Sally's office. The air in the hallway was thick with tension, as if even the walls whispered secrets of discontent. When Phyllis finally burst through the door, Sally looked up from her work, startled by the intensity in Phyllis's eyes. "Sally," Phyllis began, her voice trembling with anger, "I've heard enough. They say you're the reason I'm about to be let go, because of the way you've changed Billy. How could you possibly manipulate him so that he abandons his principles?" Sally, ever the calm mediator, sighed softly as she set her pen down. "Phyllis, I never intended for any of this to happen. I only wish for a peaceful life, a life without constant strife and unnecessary conflict. Billy made his own choice. He's chosen a quieter path, one where he can find solace away from the chaos that seems to plague this place. Phyllis's eyes flashed with indignation. Peaceful? Is that what you call it? You've turned him into someone unrecognizable, a man who no longer stands by our side, our team, or the principles we once fought for. I can't stand aside while you and Billy conspire, whether consciously or not, to dismantle everything we've built. Billy, who had been quietly listening from the doorway, stepped forward. His face was set with quiet determination. Phyllis, I understand your anger, but this isn't about conspiracy. I've chosen a different way of living, one that spares me from endless battles and pointless conflicts. I believe that staying with Sally, who understands that desire for peace, is the right decision for me. I'm not willing to be dragged back into a war that only brings more pain. Phyllis's frustration deepened, and she looked from Sally to Billy with eyes full of hurt and disappointment. Then it's clear, she spat, that our workplace has become a battleground of divided loyalties. If you can't see the damage that's being done, if you're content with turning your back on what matters, then maybe you should leave. Either depart from this place entirely or throw yourself into a project where you can take revenge on Victor for all the wrongs he's committed. But know this, Billy, I won't stand by and watch you sacrifice everything for a false sense of calm. The words hung heavy in the air, and for a long, painful moment, the silence spoke volumes. Sally tried to mediate, her voice soft yet resolute. Phyllis, we each have our own battles to fight. If you believe that revenge against Victor is the path forward, then perhaps you should choose that. But remember, our actions will have consequences far beyond what we imagine. Even as Phyllis raged against the currents of change within their group, another plan was unfolding in a more secretive and shadowed realm. Trusting in her abilities and her unwavering resolve, Kyle had recently approached Summer with a mission that would alter the course of their tangled lives. In a quiet, dimly lit room far removed from the public eye, Kyle explained the gravity of the task at hand. Summer, he said in a low, measured tone, I'm entrusting you with a very important assignment. You must act as our eyes and ears, our undercover agent. I need you to gather every secret, every scrap of evidence that Claire and Victor have hidden away. They've been masters of deception for far too long, and it's time we exposed the truth. I know you can handle this, because you've proven your loyalty time and time again. Summer's eyes narrowed as she absorbed his words. She had earned Kyle's trust, and with that came the weight of responsibility. I understand, she replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. I'll infiltrate their circle, uncover their secrets, and bring everything to light. Claire has always been on the losing side of these battles, and Victor's web of deceit will soon unravel before our eyes. Kyle nodded, the determination in his gaze matching the gravity of the moment. Remember, Summer, this is not just about gathering evidence, it's about dismantling a legacy built on lies and exploitation. We need to know what they're hiding so that we can finally put an end to their control. I have faith in you, but be cautious. The stakes are higher than ever. Back at the workplace, the fallout from the heated confrontation between Phyllis, Sally, and Billy continued to reverberate. Phyllis, still seething, knew that the decision lay before her, to either continue to fight a losing battle in a fractured environment or to choose a new path, a path defined by retribution against Victor, a man whose influence had long cast a dark shadow over them all. With a final, sharp glance at Sally, Phyllis turned and left the room, her mind already racing with plans for her next move. Billy, on the other hand, stood silently, torn between the love and loyalty he once felt for his colleagues and the quiet peace he now craved. His decision to remain alongside Sally was not one of betrayal but of self-preservation, a desire to distance himself from the endless conflicts that had consumed the past. He knew that the current state of affairs was unsustainable, yet he also understood that sometimes, the hardest choices were those that allowed him to finally reclaim his own identity. In a world where alliances shifted like sand and trust was a fragile commodity, Summer's covert mission promised to be a turning point. As she slipped away into the night, her mind focused on the secret files and whispered confidences that would eventually expose the hidden sins of Claire and Victor. she knew that the battle ahead was fraught with danger. But for the sake of truth, and for the redemption of those caught in the crossfire, she was ready to risk everything. Thus, in the midst of shattered trust and divergent paths, the intricate dance of betrayal, loyalty, and redemption continued. Phyllis's seething anger, Billy's quiet defiance, and Summer's courageous pursuit of justice painted a portrait of a world on the brink of transformation. Each character, driven by their own desires and haunted by their past, was poised at a crossroads. Their decisions would not only shape their own destinies but also determine the fate of an entire network built on secrets and power. In the echoing halls of their intertwined lives, where every whispered accusation and every secret revealed chipped away at the foundations of old alliances, a new chapter was about to be written. And as the first light of dawn began to break through the lingering darkness, each one understood that the road ahead, though uncertain and perilous, held the promise of a future where truth and justice might finally prevail. The ensuing battle between Billy and Daniel was not one of brute force, but rather a contest of ideas, emotions, and deeply held convictions. It was a conflict that unfolded slowly and steadily, marked by moments of tension and unexpected tenderness. Each encounter, whether a heated debate in a crowded room or a quiet exchange of glances across a bustling street, added layers to the narrative of their rivalry. The community around them began to take notice, with whispers of admiration for Billy's steadfast dedication and murmurs of sympathy for Daniel's relentless pursuit of a love he believed in so fiercely. In the end, the battle for Sally's heart was more than a contest between two men. It was a mirror reflecting the complexities of love itself. Billy's protective nature and unwavering commitment offered a sense of security and stability that was irreplaceable. Daniel's passionate, if sometimes misguided, approach challenged the status quo and forced everyone to re-examine what it meant to truly care for someone. Though Daniel might have lost the battle in the eyes of many, his clarity of purpose and willingness to fight for what he believed in ensured that the contest was far from a simple victory for either side. For Sally, the journey ahead remained uncertain. The choices before her were fraught with both promise and peril, and the path to her own happiness was tangled in the emotions of those who loved her. As the sun set on another day of quiet contemplation and fiery confrontation, Sally realized that the true measure of love might not lie in the strength of the battles fought, but in the resilience of the heart that endures them. In a world where every whispered promise and every quiet sacrifice counted, the battle for Sally's heart continued to unfold, a story of passion, protection, and the indomitable human spirit. And as Billy and Daniel each staked their claim on the love they so desperately sought to nurture, it became clear that sometimes, the most compelling victories are not those won by force, but those achieved through the honest, if painful, pursuit of understanding and truth.